Did you know that according to research from the National Institutes of Health, approximately 1 in 3 children struggle with self-esteem issues? This staggering statistic resonates deeply with me. It is a reality I have lived through. As a child, I felt like I was always on the outside looking in. I watched as my peers laughed and played with confidence. They seemed to glide through life while I felt weighed down by invisible chains. I was 7 when the whispers began. At school, I was often the last one picked for teams during recess. The laughter of my classmates echoed around me like a haunting melody, each note piercing through my fragile self-worth. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be chosen. I wanted to feel that thrill of belonging. Instead, I stood there with a knot in my stomach. Each day brought with it the same dread. Would this be the day someone would notice me? Would this be the day I would be included? The answer was often no. At home, my parents did their best to encourage me. They told me that I was special, that I had unique talents. But those words felt hollow when they echoed in the silence of my room. I loved art, but I was too shy to show anyone my drawings. I would spend hours sketching, pouring my emotions onto paper, creating vibrant worlds that felt more real than my own. However, every time I thought about sharing my work, a voice inside my head would scream that it wasn't good enough. This inner critic grew louder as I entered middle school. The pressures of adolescence began to mount. My classmates started to morph into groups. I felt lost in the shuffle. The bright colors of my drawings faded into a muted palette of fear and insecurity. I watched my friends engage in conversations effortlessly. Their laughter was infectious, but I found it hard to join in. I felt like I was trapped behind a glass wall, watching a world I desperately wanted to be part of but couldn't reach. The turning point came during an art project in the 8th grade. Our teacher announced we would be creating a piece to display at a school exhibition. My heart raced with excitement and fear. I wanted to create something beautiful. I wanted to showcase my art to everyone. Yet the thought of putting my work on display felt paralyzing. What if they laughed? What if they thought my art was terrible? I spent weeks doubting myself. I stayed up late at night staring at blank canvases. Finally, the day of the exhibition arrived. My anxiety surged as I stood next to my artwork, heart pounding in my chest. As people walked by, I held my breath, anticipating laughter, ridicule, or indifference. Instead, I watched in awe as a few students paused, smiled, and complimented my work. One girl approached me, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "This is amazing. You have a real gift," she said, and for a moment I felt seen. Yet the moment was fleeting. As the night wore on, I overheard some older students mocking certain pieces. They pointed and laughed, and I felt my heart sink. I was paralyzed by fear. I wanted to run away. I wanted to hide from the world. That night, I learned a painful lesson. It was not just the voices of encouragement that mattered. It was also the harsh critiques. Those moments seemed to outweigh the compliments. My fragile self-esteem took another hit. High school did not offer the reprieve I had hoped for. The social dynamics shifted once again. Cliques formed like impenetrable walls. I drifted from group to group, always feeling like an outsider. I became a master of blending in, avoiding attention at all costs. I often sat alone during lunch, pretending to be engrossed in a book, hoping the world would forget I existed. As I moved through those years, my confidence dwindled. I found myself constantly comparing myself to others. I wanted to join clubs and activities, but I often backed down. Each time I thought about putting myself out there, a wave of self-doubt crashed over me. The fear of rejection felt suffocating. I watched opportunities slip away as I held myself back. It wasn't until my junior year that I discovered something that reignited a flicker of hope within me. A teacher encouraged me to take part in a school-wide art competition. First, I was resistant. The memories of the exhibition echoed in my mind, but there was something about her belief in me that made me reconsider. After many sleepless nights of deliberation, I decided to enter the competition. As I worked on my piece, I poured all my emotions into it. I confronted the fears that had haunted me for years. I embraced my creativity without holding back. The day of the competition arrived, and I stood nervously next to my artwork. To my astonishment, people began to gather around, admiring my work. The recognition was surreal. When the winners were announced, I couldn't believe my ears. I had won first place. As I stood on that stage holding my trophy, I felt an overwhelming rush of emotions. Tears streamed down my face. For the first time, I felt a sense of validation. I realized that my voice mattered. I realized that my art could touch others. It was a pivotal moment, but it did not erase the years of struggle that had preceded it. Even with this newfound recognition, my self-esteem remained fragile. I learned that building confidence is not a linear journey. There were still days filled with self-doubt and insecurities. The shadows of my past lingered, reminding me of the fears I still needed to confront. Through all of this, I came to understand the profound impact that self-esteem has on a person's life. It shapes our experiences and influences the way we interact with the world. My journey was fraught with challenges, but it also taught me resilience. I began to see that confidence could be built from the inside out. Reflecting on my childhood struggles, I wish I had been part of a supportive community focused on building self-esteem. I longed for a space where children could share their experiences and learn to embrace their unique selves without fear of judgment. My journey taught me that self-esteem is a vital part of our lives. It affects how we approach challenges and pursue our passions. As I look back, I realize that the journey to self-esteem is ongoing. It is not merely about winning competitions or receiving compliments. It is about embracing who we are, flaws and all. It is about learning to silence the inner critic and finding strength in vulnerability. Through my struggles, I discovered the importance of fostering self-worth in children. It is crucial for them to understand that they are enough just as they are. They need spaces that nurture their confidence and celebrate their individuality. The journey may be long and challenging, but it is one worth embarking on. Every step taken towards self-love is a step toward a brighter future. As I stood on that stage clutching my trophy, something profound shifted within me. I began to realize that my journey didn't have to be defined solely by past struggles. I felt an awakening of sorts. I understood that I had the power to reshape my narrative and reclaim my self-worth. This realization sparked the beginning of my transformation. The road ahead was not without its challenges. Building self-esteem requires consistent effort and a willingness to confront the inner critic that can so easily derail progress. I knew I needed to take concrete steps to cultivate my confidence and nurture my sense of self. I started small. I focused on the simple yet powerful practice of positive affirmations. Each morning, I would look in the mirror and repeat empowering phrases to myself. Words like "I am worthy" and "I am capable" became mantras that helped drown out the negativity that once filled my mind. I would stand there, often fighting back tears, reminding myself that I deserved love and respect. Another step I took was to surround myself with supportive people. I started to connect with friends who celebrated my achievements no matter how small. I began to realize the importance of a positive environment. Having a support system made a significant difference in my journey. I reached out to those who understood my struggles and could empathize with my journey. I began to share my experiences with them, and their encouragement fueled my determination to improve. I joined art clubs and engaged in activities that fueled my passion. These spaces became havens where I could express myself freely. The camaraderie among fellow artists fostered a sense of belonging that I had long craved. Additionally, I ventured outside my comfort zone by setting achievable goals. I began to embrace new experiences that made me anxious yet excited. I took on projects at school that pushed my boundaries. At first, these small challenges felt daunting. I remember the anxiety bubbling within me as I prepared for my first public speaking engagement. The night before, I barely slept, my mind racing with self-doubt. However, I reminded myself of the steps I was taking to change my narrative. I delivered my speech with shaky hands and a pounding heart, but when I finished, the applause from my classmates filled me with a sense of accomplishment I had never felt before. Each time I completed a goal, I felt a rush of achievement. This cycle of setting goals and achieving them gradually transformed my mindset. I learned to trust myself and my abilities. Each small victory became a building block for my confidence. As I continued this journey, I discovered the value of resilience. I learned that setbacks are a natural part of growth. Instead of succumbing to feelings of defeat, I adopted a mindset focused on learning from my experiences. Whenever I faced criticism or failure, I reminded myself that these moments did not define my worth. I sought constructive feedback and used it as fuel for improvement rather than as a reason to retreat into insecurity. I vividly recall a time when I submitted a piece of art for a school competition and did not win. First, I was devastated. I questioned my talent and felt like giving up. But after some reflection, I realized that losing was not the end of my journey. Instead, it was an opportunity to grow. I approached my art teacher for feedback and used it to improve my skills for the next competition. Engaging in mindfulness practices also played a crucial role in my transformation. I discovered the benefits of meditation and self-reflection. Taking time to connect with my thoughts and feelings helped me gain clarity. I began to set aside a few minutes each day to sit in silence, focusing on my breath and allowing my mind to settle. During these moments, I learned to observe my emotions without judgment. This practice taught me to be kinder to myself. I realized that it was okay to feel vulnerable and imperfect. These feelings are part of the human experience. Through mindfulness, I developed a sense of self-compassion that became a cornerstone of my confidence. Over time, I started to notice significant changes in my self-perception. The mirror reflected a person who was learning to embrace their uniqueness. I became more willing to share my art and ideas. I joined discussions in class and contributed to projects with enthusiasm. My classmates began to recognize the shift. They no longer saw me as the quiet girl hiding in the background. I was becoming a vibrant participant in the community around me. I found my voice and began to express it without fear. I remember a particular group project where I confidently shared my ideas, and my classmates praised my contributions. Their acknowledgement was a turning point for me. It solidified my belief that I had something valuable to offer. The culmination of my journey came when I decided to share my story. I organized an art showcase featuring not only my work but also pieces from my friends. I wanted to create a space where others could share their creativity without fear of judgment. The event was a resounding success. I witnessed the joy on my friends' faces as they showcased their talents. I felt an overwhelming sense of pride in our collective achievements. That day, I realized that confidence is contagious. When we uplift one another, we create a ripple effect that empowers everyone involved. I stood back and watched as my friends celebrated their work, feeling honored to be part of such a supportive community. Reflecting on my journey, I understand that the process of building self-esteem is ongoing. It is a lifelong commitment to nurturing our self-worth and supporting others in their journeys. Each step taken toward self-love is significant. I encourage anyone facing similar struggles to take those first steps. Begin with affirmations. Surround yourself with positivity. Set achievable goals and embrace mindfulness. Through this process, I came across a powerful resource that played a pivotal role in my transformation. The book titled The Confidence Club, Building Self-Esteem in Children from the Inside Out provided me with invaluable insights. It emphasized the importance of fostering self-esteem in a supportive community. The strategies outlined in the book helped me solidify my understanding of self-worth and resilience. If you are looking to transform your own journey and nurture the self-esteem of children in your life, I highly recommend grabbing a copy. You can find it at libriffy.com. Embrace the opportunity to build confidence from the inside out. Your journey toward self-love and empowerment begins today.